Hey friends, it's Julie from Plan to Create, and today I'm coming at you to talk about the difference between half letter and A5. I'm going to try and convince anyone who's in the United States using A5 to consider half letter because of the ease of printing and cutting. And that's if you're printing your own inserts. If you're purchasing already printed A5 inserts, you're not going to care about this. But if you're doing it yourself and you're trimming and cutting, I would highly recommend you just consider half letter. So right off the bat, let's just do a little quick comparison. I wanted to show you, I'm going to stack these up next to each other. I have a sheet of vellum in A5 size, and I have a printout of half letter here next to each other. And I know that this is a little bit hard to tell, and I'll try to zoom in a little bit to the corners, but you can see that the half letter is slightly narrower, and it is a little bit taller than the A5 size. So like I said, I'll try to zoom in, and particularly on this corner here, to show you the difference on that. So right off the bat, you can see that the usable space is not that much different. And just keep in mind that I am using a disc punched for these, but you could absolutely take your half letter inserts, print them, you could trim off the top, and then just punch them with your 6-hole punch and use them in your A5 binder. So that's probably one of the biggest things I would think people may not understand. You do have to recognize that yes, there would be this little gap here on your inserts that are half letter versus anything you have in your planner that is A5. But I would argue that if you have a divider or something else that's A5, I mean, I would want that to stick out farther than my sheet. You know, I wouldn't want my paper to stick out past my divider. So I feel like it's still a usable situation to include half letter size inserts into an A5 binder. Now you might ask, like, why in the world do I care? Why would I try to convince someone else to use this? And I don't care what you use. I'm just simply sharing that I used A5 forever, because when I first came to the planning world, A5 is what I saw. It was like A5 KKK planners. I saw, you know, the GM agenda was geared strongly towards A5 size. Everything that I seemed to see was A5. Since then, a lot of people have been releasing half letter discs, but I don't feel like it's discussed how you could interchange and use each of these. You don't have to use discs with half letter. You could use half letter inside an A5 binder and still be completely fine. So the reason why I care so much about this is simply just the ease of printing and cutting. I'm going to show you, I've created this little wish list, and I wanted to show you guys kind of the difference in why I'm doing half letter now versus A5 for myself. So again, I'm speaking primarily to those of us in the United States or anywhere that's just using, you know, letter size paper. If you are in a country or an area that uses A4 paper and A5, well, of course you're going to use A5 inserts. That totally makes sense, and I'm not trying to convince you otherwise. What I'm trying to say is if you are printing onto letter size paper, here's an example. You get these two inserts, you literally trim right down the middle, and then you punch, and you are done. And that is so simple. So before, every time I was printing my A5 inserts, I was cutting around. You'll see that there's little crop marks included in this for me. So I would cut around and trim to that A5 size. And quite frankly, like, for the amount of space that it's gaining me, you know, A5, that's just simply not worth it to me, the hassle of doing that. So that kind of goes back to the fact, like, if you're purchasing your inserts, they're coming to you A5, they're already printed. Again, this is probably not a video you care about, but if you are printing your own stuff and you have been cutting and trimming around in order to get that A5 size, I just think that this is really worth a strong consideration. I am happy to offer the A5 version for those of you abroad. I know that several of you would like to see that back in my shop, and I am not trying to alienate you guys at all, but I'm really trying to convince anyone that has been hassling with this trimming and doesn't necessarily need to be. I'm trying to offer this as informative and maybe just time saving for you. It's also a lot less waste of paper if you're just being, you know, careful or frugal about that. So I thought I just would share this quickly. I felt like it was something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And again, I'm not here to offend anyone that's using A5. You know, if that's your jam, more power to you. And if you don't mind that extra printing and cutting, then I say go for it. For me, once I discovered this half letter, I was just all in. And again, I want to reiterate that, like, I am using these discs. I like them because I can just punch and then I can slide pages in and out easily. I feel like it works nicely here in my GM. But honestly, this had rings, and if I hadn't removed them, I could absolutely be using this size. Like I said, just maybe trimming off the top to get to that exact A5 height, and then punching the 6 punches. That would work just great too. But I thought I would just throw this out into the world and see how it's received. I would love to hear your feedback. I'm totally, curious. Like if this is like something that you're like, oh gosh, I never thought of that. Or if you're like me in the beginning, I knew that there was a half letter option out there, but I thought it would really bother me to have it be narrower than the rest of my setup. So sometimes, that's just it. You want everything to line up perfectly on the side, and I do understand that. And if that's where you're at with A5, obviously that's where you should stay. But if this is something that you would consider changing into, if you're an A5 girl and you would really appreciate the ease of just one simple cut and a punch, or maybe 2 simple cuts and a hole punch, just something to consider. That's just, I'm throwing it out there. So, wanted to just share that, kind of get it off my heart, and you guys take it or leave it, and let me know what you think. All right, you guys, until next time, take care.